Zoom Siri. She's always there for us, reminding us that we're being recorded.
Not like that bitch Alexa. She's
Yeah,
very
she records us surreptitiously without our knowledge or permission.
right.
Good times. Well, welcome everybody out there in podcast land. We are back, I say, with another episode of Different Strings, colon,
Olin.
a, a guitar adjacent podcast. I, as always, am your host, Wes, and I'm here along with my good friend, Andy. Andy, please say hello to the entire world.
Oh my God. Hi. How's everyone doing today?
Oh, starting with me, pretty good. I did a tech video, a motorcycle video with a friend of mine called Mark. And when I told him to say hello to the whole world, because the video will eventually be on YouTube on
Mhm,
my job channel,
mhm.
he got a panicked look in his eye because I don't think he really considered how viewable the video was going to be until that moment when I said it.
The
It was kind of
the
funny.
scope the scope was not in the forefront of his
Yeah.
mind.
Because he's a writer as well as a writer, and he doesn't do video. He's not on social media. He has no idea, you
Oh,
know. So,
okay.
anyways, that was a fantastic greeting as always. And
Thank you.
I don't know if the people out there in the world can see our names, our Zoom names, but yours says Bitchy Blackmore, and that makes me laugh. That
Thank
warms
you.
the cockles of my heart.
Remember what it was
Um,
last week?
I do not, unfortunately. What was it?
Twerk Hammett.
Twerk Hammond. Our topic this week is twofold. Well, it's actually onefold. It's all about the new. So both Andy and I are in new bands, and we're both using new or at least new-ish rigs
Hmm.
with those bands, and we're going to break down our rigs right here for you on Different Strings, colon, a guitar adjacent podcast. But before we do any of that, Andy, as has become our tradition, please tell everyone where they can find us on the internet.
You may find us at differentstringspodcast.com. You can email us your questions or topic ideas of Different Strings Podcast at gmail.com or contact at differentstringspodcast.com. That's a mouthful. I'm sorry. We're also
That
on
is.
Facebook if you're interested in browsing the Facebooks. Also, if you're listening or watching on YouTube, please, for the love of God and all that is good and pure in this world, do all the things. Subscribe to the podcast, hit the bell to be notified, leave some comments, questions, do all the things. Hit just like everything that the YouTube algorithm gods demand. And finally, wherever you absorb, consume this great media form called podcasting, please subscribe to all, just to subscribe, download, listen, re-listen, listen again, listen 4 times, 5 times, leave us good reviews too. If you don't, we may come after you. Just saying, you don't want that. So you want to, but you want to make sure you're subscribing so you don't miss an action-packed episode, because a lot of shit goes down here, and you want to you want to be privy to all of that, at least until one of us gets arrested for indecency.
Uh, well, that was a left turn. So we're gonna start by talking about our new bands, and then
Ooh.
I'm considering that the opener because that's actually the least interesting part, I think. And then the headliner is gonna be our rigs that we used. So
Okay.
because I had 2 rehearsals and a gig, and you had an audition and a gig with no
Mm-hmm.
rehearsal in between. And I think that's
Nope.
a really interesting story. So start with that. Tell me the name of the band, how you prepped for the audition, and how the first gig went.
Oh. So the band is called The Posers. They are a 90s, they are called The Posers. They are a 90s tribute act. And sorry, 90s music tribute act. And I mean 1990s. We're not doing
Right.
music from the 1890s or
No,
1790s. That
that's
would
probably a good thing. There's not a lot of call for that.
absurd. Um, so and to be clear, although I'm a guitar player and one would automatically assume that it's 90s rock, I'm here to tell you that they do a wide variety of 90s music, which includes rap and hip hop and country. Um, so it's all the things that encompass the 90s. And it's kind of fun. Um, the band, each member of the band at each gig dresses in different 90s regalia, and they all try to do something a little different, so that they intentionally don't coordinate. I mean, they coordinate in that it's all 90s, but it's not everyone in flannel because then it just looks like Pearl
Right.
Jam is playing. And there's no fun in that. So that's the deal with that band. Do you want me to go on or
Yeah. Yeah.
okay?
So I know you had the audition because you had it on the night that we typically record our Zoom session for this
Sorry.
podcast.
Yep.
So no, I'm not complaining at all because if like there's two really good reasons to skip out on recording a podcast episode. Number one is family, number two is music. Right? That's what we're here for. We're here to talk about music with our family of listeners.
Aw. Well, I'm happy to report that this band is family now because um, they are just the nicest, I mean, the most gracious, funny, caring people I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And if you're listening, hi. But I, but so even leading up to the audition, so I have been on a break from bands and even playing to some extent for a while. Um, in fact, I do the podcast to stay connected to guitar because I just really haven't been playing as much, but I still love
Yeah.
it. Um, but it's been several years since I was in a band, and not gonna lie, a little rusty. And I really haven't been practicing um, as much as I would normally practice if I was in a band. And also, as part of not playing as much, my calluses are gone, like legit gone.
Yeah.
I my calluses don't stay unless I'm playing frequently. It's not the first time that they've disappeared, but they're gone again. So yay me. So I got a wild hair up my butt to get back out there, so to speak, and I really did not know in 2024 how people find bands. Like, do you just stand on a street corner screaming? I
With a
don't know.
sign. We'll play for band.
Hmm. So I know there's a thing called band mix. It sucks. There's also this thing called Craigslist. It also sucks. Um, but I started asking around, and someone told me Facebook. So again, Facebook to the rescue. Um, this is a weird sentence, but there's apparently like a Philadelphia musician like band community where people go to post like promote their bands and also to find bands or musicians. So
Yeah.
like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, I posted something, and within minutes, mere minutes, I had someone reach out to me. Weirdly, one and only. No one else. My ad's still up there. One person contacted me, and he sent me a link to the Facebook page, and he was really nice. And I checked out their Facebook page, and I liked what they were all about. 90s music, dig it. Everyone seemed to like what they were doing and having fun, and they play locally. I don't know. Next thing you know, I sent him some links to some covers that I had recorded years ago they were on Dropbox, and I also told him because he and I had a mutual friend on Facebook. I said, reach out to that person for a reference. I encourage you to check up on me, so to speak. So he did, and we scheduled an audition. He sent me 3 songs, which I told you about in our last episode.
Yeah.
If you didn't hear it, kids, first of all, why? But also, they sent me 3 songs. The first song was um, Mr. Brightside by the Killers. Yikes. Very, very challenging guitar song. And apparently, I believe this would have been a challenge for one of their guitar players in the past. And they also have a second guitar player, have another guitar player in the band. So I suspect he was behind this because he knows it's a hard song. And he's like, I'm going to give this to this girl and see what she can do with it. Anyway, nailed it. But um, the second song was Runaround by Blues Traveler. And I was told to play the harmonica solos on guitar.
Okay.
So I can't play harmonica solos on guitar. So I just improvised. It sounded great. I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm saying it sounded really, I didn't think it was going to sound good because like people are expecting harmonica, but
Yeah.
if you
Plus, I
take,
mean, how good can it sound when you're just banging a harmonica on your guitar?
you show yourself out. Um, so, but if you take the harmonica out of the song and you play it right, it's basically just a blues song with, so anyway, the third song they wanted me to learn was Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman.
That's a great song. I mean, no
Mm-hmm,
doubt about it.
mm-hmm,
And it does show the breadth of their commitment to playing the 90s.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Kind of
it's
skipping
kind of
over the obvious
funny.
here.
I
Kind
know.
of skip
I was letting people come to that on their own.
either either they really just wanted to hear me play that song, or that was an absolute dig at my trans ass. And I am choosing to think it's a little bit of both, but they clarified that it was just coincidence.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah. Also, for my next audition, they wanted me to do just a girl and dude looks like a lady. But anyway, we're not going to go there. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so I showed up for the audition, played those three songs, and then we actually played more songs.
Cool.
Yeah, there was a great vibe in the room. Like everyone was super nice, very gracious, no pressure. Um, and then at one point, I had to leave the room so they could talk about me behind my back. So I said, "Hey, I'll go out to my car for a few minutes. You guys, discuss amongst yourselves." I was in my car for 4 seconds, and all right, let's do this. And like
Nice.
that was it. And I said, "Wait, was that you telling me I'm in the band?" And he was like, "Yep." And so we spent the rest of the night playing and talking. And I did actually spend a lot of time at the end of the audition talking to two of the band members. I'll say their names, Jack and Alexis. They are beautiful people. And I told them a little bit about my story and what I'm about. And they were incredibly kind and welcoming. Um, and it was just awesome. But the there's the maybe one of the best parts of the night was when at the end they said, "So I know it's Wednesday. We have a gig Friday.
You want to do it?
You want to do it?" Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm in.
yeah.
What's the makeup of the band? What's the like
Oh,
how
so
many people and what do they play?
six
Not
people.
necessarily all the names. I don't expect you to remember all the names this fast.
I do. Six people. Where they have a drummer and me, of course. Thank you. I play lead and rhythm guitar. And they have a drummer. They have a bass player. They have two lead vocalists. Um, and they have I hate to call him the utility guy because it sounds a little like
It's
reductive.
diminishing.
It's
Yeah.
reductive. But he plays keyboards, guitar, and sings lead and backup. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So
He's the guy in Winger that wasn't Red Beach.
yeah. I mean, dude's
Um
busy. So yeah,
oh,
and
it's
so,
killing me. I can't remember that dude's name. Paul Taylor.
Paul Taylor. Um, so of the two lead singers I mentioned, one Alexis and the gentleman's name is Kendall. And between the two of them plus Nolan, there is really nothing we can't cover from the 90s. I mean, rock, R&B, rap, hip hop. They've got
Sweet.
country, they've got it covered. It's the makeup of this band the instrumentation and the people, I'm telling you, I landed right out of the gate in what I consider to be my perfect situation. And the fact that they're good people to boot. And again, I'm not just saying this because they're listening, but if you are, hi, thank you for accepting me. Um, I'm really, really excited. But so they are too, apparently, because they asked me to do a gig 2 days after the audition. And
Yeah, that's huge.
that,
No
I mean, that,
pressure, right?
well, and not even pressure. They were just like, come up and play the songs you can play. So if you don't
Oh,
know,
cool.
they're just like, come play the songs you want to. If you know 10 songs, play those 10. I wound up playing a lot because I did actually spend time learning more songs between the audition and gig. And then at the gig, um,
I mean, yeah, what else are you gonna do? You had 48 whole hours.
exactly, what slacker, get off your ass and learn some songs. But also then at the show, um, the drummer, who's the really the band leader,
Okay.
co-leader perhaps, um, um, was encouraging me to play songs I hadn't played before. Like he had me go out and say, "Hey, can you learn this real quick because we want to do this and we want you to do it with us." So at the
Yeah.
gig, I was learning a song or two. So there's a reason I'm telling you that. And of course, I'm like, sure, I don't want to say no. The guy's putting his faith in me. I don't want to let him down. That's um so at the end of the night, I looked at his name is Jack, and I said, no pressure. And he started laughing. And he said, if I didn't think you could do it, I
Yeah,
wouldn't
that's
have
a good
asked.
point.
So remember I told you that I had told him I encouraged Jack to check a reference on me. And he reached out to
Yeah.
my friend Tom, who I've known for like 30 years. And Tom basically said, hire her. You'd be
Nice.
stupid not to. You know, she's my go-to. She's my first call if ever I need a guitar player. Just she can do any style. She will learn the songs quickly and note for note. And you know, you she'll listen to a song once and then just play it. Like that's how she rolls. So hire her. And um, I don't want to put Jack on the spot, but apparently after the gig, Jack sent Tom a text that said, "Holy effing shit, you weren't lying." And
Nice.
Tom sent me that and said, "You must have made quite an impression," which was like super validating, and I felt really good about it. Now,
Awesome.
Jack, if you're listening, hi, thank you. I, I, I didn't tell Tom that I was going to tell Jack that, but I'm telling Jack. Jack, if you're listening,
Now he
thank
knows.
you. Yeah. So that was amazing, and I had a great time. And more importantly, like I let go. I mean, I've been playing a long time, and I tend to be a perfectionist when it comes to myself. And to be honest, with the band I'm with, like I hear
What? No. No.
I hear every mistake, whether I make it or somebody else. And I this is the old me, and I would keep a mental scorecard. And the more mistakes there were, regardless of who they were by, they would
Right.
add up and add up and add up, and then they would detract from my joy.
I was gonna say that sounds like a great way to have a shitty gig.
And we wonder why I took a break.
Yeah.
Um, that did not happen.
Good.
It
I'm
didn't
glad to hear
happen
that.
at the audition, and it didn't happen at the gig. I definitely made my share of mistakes. I do not care. I will practice. I will get better. No one said anything to me or looked at me sideways. I started Mr. Brightside and completely botched it because I have an excuse, but I'm not going to make it. I botched the beginning. It was my worst fear, and I did it at a gig. And I yelled at
Nice.
myself. I went, no. And then I started the song again and I got it right.
There you go.
Didn't keep track, didn't keep score, didn't hear these mistakes and start keeping the running list. It was like they rolled off my back because mistakes happen. It goes the way it goes. And I allowed myself to enjoy the gig. I really did. And like I said, everyone couldn't have been nicer. And maybe part of the reason why I let go is because I felt comfortable doing so. I mean,
Yeah.
I told these guys before I auditioned that I'm trans. Now, I did that with a band before this, and they ghosted me. Coincidence? One will never know. This band did not. And when they invited me to do the gig with them, they told me where it was going to be. And I told them I wasn't comfortable being a trans person in this particular space.
Environment. Yeah.
And they said, "We have your back." And Alexis, the singer, said, "If you need a bathroom buddy, I'm with you." They don't even know me.
Fantastic.
I mean, you could not ask for nicer people. And that's why, if you're listening, hi, thank you. Also, I feel very strongly that from the moment I walked in that room, I was in the right place, even before we played a single note. And I'm happy that they're great people and they're also ridiculously talented, but I'm also happy that I was able to let go of my perfectionism and my critical nature to actually enjoy myself. And I am just incredibly stoked. Plus, my gear sounded amazing, but we'll get to that in a minute.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. So that's my experience. That was
Awesome.
the first gig. Now I actually have 2 weeks before the next gig. So it's like, well, if that's what you could do without any rehearsal, you guess you better get your act
Yeah.
together. So yeah, we
Yeah.
were
You've definitely set the bar high for yourself.
yeah, whoops. Um, anyway, that's my audition and band story. So if you guys are listening, thank you for being so nice. All right, so do you want me to go gear or do you want to go into your band? Oh no, it's opening. We're still in opening act, so now it's your
We're
turn.
still in the opening act. This is more of a co-headliner.
Yeah, probably. And
Yeah.
but before
Go ahead.
I think there's a takeaway in my story.
Hit me.
Okay. I do know for a fact we have some listeners who don't think of varying degrees of confidence. That's a fair
Right.
statement,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
We have young and we have old. I'm sure we have experienced and inexperienced. We have people from all walks of life, all different genders. We we have a broad mix. Our 20 listeners are a broad mix of people and good people too.
Yeah.
I want to say to all of you that if I can walk into this situation and be successful, I know you can. Um, I was rusty. I was out of practice. I did not work on more than 3 songs. They sent me 3 songs. I worked on those three.
Yep.
Everything else was, but the most important thing I want to say is I knew I was in a good place with those people. And no matter how good the band sounded, it was the people that made it worthwhile. And so my takeaway from this is work with good people. Everything else will fall into place. If you work with the right people, don't compromise your values and work with people that you either can't respect or can't get along with or you don't see. It's
Or
okay to
that
have
don't respect
differences,
you.
right? It's okay to have differences, but mutual respect is critical. And find the right people and everything else falls into place. And this was proof because it was the people first that sucked me into this and then everything else fell into place. So that's my takeaway from this and I will always look at this experience as a very good learning opportunity.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that.
So what's your situation, my friend? Because I did not even realize you got this gig. I knew you auditioned and then it's the last I heard.
Well, I actually didn't audition, really. It's kind of a
Oh,
weird story. I got drummed out of my last band by some really disrespectful people exerting some really poor choice making options.
yeah, and we need to talk about that shit real
Yes.
soon.
And we will not tonight, but we will talk about that soon.
Oh, you just
Um,
dropped that massive bomb, and then we're
I
like,
did. I
psych.
did.
Oh, I kind of
Well,
love
it's
that
okay
though.
because I'm pretty sure none of them are listening to this because,
Well, maybe
why
one
would
of us
they?
might send a link with a timestamp.
I'm not. I'm not.
I
Anyway,
didn't say it was going to
um,
be you.
I I had more or less just decided I was going to focus on my solo stuff. You
Yeah.
mentioned on the last episode, you mentioned my EP, my Hypersonic Secret EP that's out. hypersonicsecret.bandcamp.com for anybody that's interested. And I was happy just doing that. And I wasn't really thinking about joining another band. I figured, you know, keep my, I'd keep my eyes and my mind open and just see if anything came along, you know, maybe go to a few shows, put the word out locally that, you know, I was available and looking halfway for a situation. So I guess in February on one of the internet forums that I participate on, a guy posted, said, "Hey, we got a gig in May. We need a rhythm guitar player. It's a surf band. We need a rhythm guitar player, and anybody around that's interested in sitting in for this gig, give me a call." Well, I sent the dude a message and just said, you know, listen, I'm not local because they're in Annapolis, Maryland, which is like 2 hours away from me
What?
on a good day. Yeah, yeah, 2 hours on a
Wow.
good day. Um, so I said, you know, listen, this is a total outside shot, but if you guys get down to it and you can't find somebody, let me know because I can learn one set worth of material and be your rhythm guitar player so you sound the best you can sound, you know? And I figured
Yeah.
at the very least it would be fun and I'd get to learn a bunch of surf songs. Plus I listen to their music and I really like it. You know, I'll listen to a lot of stuff, but I don't necessarily want to learn how to play a bunch of stuff because it's just not it's not necessarily it's good surf music, but it's not stuff that I'm interested in learning how to play, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Mhm.
So they must have talked amongst themselves and decided to at least engage with me. I talked to the lead guitar player, his name is Art, and he wanted to talk on the phone. We talked on the phone. And I basically decided that I was just going to have a no bullshit approach. And I was like, listen, I love surf music. I've got pro gear. I got a reliable car. I don't drink much. I don't do drugs. I'm willing to step up and play your set with no drama. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm a professional. I'm very good at what I do. And if you want the help, then let's do it.
Wow.
And so during that call, I mean, I wasn't trying to be rude. I was just trying to be blunt, you know, and upfront because I figured, what's the worst he's going to do? Well, you know, hey, I'm sorry, Wes, this isn't going to work out. No harm, no foul. It was a 15-minute phone call, you know, the
Right.
15 minutes out of my life. So at the end of the call, I sent him a song from my EP, which was not out at the time. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even finished being mixed at that point. But I had one song that I had released as a single previously, and I sent
Mhm.
that song to him. The song is 3 minutes and 3 seconds long. He called me back 3 minutes and 5 seconds later and said, "You definitely understand what we're going for. Let's
Oh.
do this. I'll send you the set." And so, and coincidentally, I had already bought their album
Oh,
previously,
nice.
right? So the band is called Agent Octopus,
Yeah.
not as one of my friends mistakenly heard me, Agent Orange, which is a completely different band and an awesome band, kind of a punk surf band from the 80s.
Okay.
Great band, by the way, Agent Orange. This is Agent Octopus. Um, and so they sent me 20 songs because they've got an hour set. It's surf music. The songs are like 2.5 to 3 minutes long. So
Yeah. Yeah. Good
20
point.
songs was definitely more than we would need, but they
Uh-huh.
wanted to make sure that everything was there because they like to like plan the first 3 quarters of the set and then see what the room feels like for the last 3 or 4 songs.
Mhm.
So I needed to be a little bit flexible. And it was a mix. It was about 50-50 their songs and cover songs, which to me, they were all cover songs because, you know, even though I'd heard some of their songs, I'd never heard I had only heard one of the cover songs before.
Mhm.
Um, it was on an album by a band called the Space Cossacks that I really like. So um, they planned 2 rehearsals, one in March and one in April, because the gig was the first weekend in May.
Mhm.
And Art actually came down to my house in late February just to go through all the songs with me. And I could tell he was a little nervous when he first got here. And I could tell about 15 minutes in, we'd played maybe 3 or 4 songs. He
Mhm.
visibly relaxed. Like he understood that I knew what I was doing. And like he came in and he saw I had a jazz master and a bassman. And so he knew my gear was going to work, even though I wasn't going to use the bassman for the gig because it's way too heavy. Um, so, and then the first rehearsal went fine. I have my music book, I had charted out all the songs because I'm an ear learner, but my memory isn't quite what it used to be. So I knew I'd for the rehearsal, at the very least, I'd need a reference. Um, Plus, that's a lot of songs. It was 20 songs that I had to learn.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It it's the I know it's I don't Zoom, help me out here. How does this okay. It's the sheer volume of songs
Yeah, it was
alone
intimidating.
is that's the point I was trying to make is don't I'm not underestimating just because they're surf songs. Surf is a lot of guitar. There's no
Yeah,
hiding.
and
It's all clean tone. There's no hiding
yeah,
behind distortion and so 20 songs to keep straight. At least if they were long songs, plus if they're covers, it's like, well, I've heard these songs a million times. I can kind of guess how to play. These are original songs.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
big workload. You should be proud of
yeah,
yourself.
and probably 60% of them are in E or E minor.
Which kind of makes it even worse because they all start
So
the same
yeah,
place.
let that sink in a little bit. But I planned it out. I was very methodical about it, and I planned it out. Um, I spent the first week just figuring out the songs and writing the charts,
Okay, so
and
you did
then
chart them out. That's smart move.
yeah, and then I spent the second week playing through every single song in a row. That they did me a real solid, and they came up with the set back then, so that not only could I learn the songs, but I could learn them in order, which was huge to me. That I asked for that. So
Hmm.
that helped reinforce the differences in the songs because I knew this song was next and this song was next, et cetera, et cetera. And so I went to the first rehearsal. It went really well. We played through the set twice. And I'm not even coming from the farthest away. Jim, the bass player, lives in Orlando, Florida.
Yikes.
Yeah. So he had to fly and stay overnight. I only had to drive a couple hours. And the rehearsal was on a Sunday, so there wasn't much traffic. It was fantastic. And they welcomed me like I was already part of the band. And Jim's one of one of Art's concerns was, especially after he heard my stuff, was that I wouldn't be satisfied just playing rhythm guitar. And I told him that I actually thought that was a little bit more difficult in the surf songs because the rhythm guitar has to be perfect.
Hmm.
If the lead, as long as you get the melody at the beginning and the melody at the end and kind of the high points, you can kind of fudge some of the other stuff in between as long as you're in the right key for the leads,
Yeah.
for the lead part. But the rhythm has to be locked in with the bass, and it's just got to be perfect. And I really found that a challenge. So
Hmm.
I was really happy to play, to be, quote, just the rhythm player, because I don't see in 2 guitar bands, I don't see it as either or, and one person is better than the other. You know, people don't think about the rhythm guitar player in Aerosmith, but that guy's got to be every bit as good as Joe Perry, right? Brad Willis, Brad something, which is not reinforcing my point very thoroughly, right? You look but I mean, look at Malcolm Young, the quintessential rock rhythm player. Nobody ever sneezed or looked down their nose at him for being, quote, just a rhythm player. So I
Brad
wasn't
Whit
even worried about that.
Brad
I wanted to
Whitford
make
is the gentleman
Brad
you were
Whitford, thank you.
disrespecting.
I wanted to make the songs sound as good as they could be, and that requires steady rhythm, and
Yeah.
it's got to be spot on. So between the first rehearsal and the second rehearsal, though, I changed up my rig because they kind of explained to me about the venue was very small stage, very tight schedule. Um, and so I changed up my rig accordingly. And the gig went great. I mean, my first gig with this band was in New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah, downtown Manhattan at a place called Otto's Shrunken Head. It's kind of a tiki bar. It was fantastic. It was a festival. It's a surf, well, they call it Twang Stock. It's kind of a surf and instro rockabilly festival they do every year. And it was a blast. We got in, we played. Our set got cut a little short, not that big a deal, but I played well. Our I played I made a few mistakes, but I tried not to get down on myself. Um, I wasn't the only one. So, I felt pretty good about that.
Great.
And they were real welcoming. And, basically before we got to the gig, they were talking about playing more gigs. And,
Uh-huh.
it seemed like my participation amped up their confidence and willingness to play more,
Wow.
because they knew that they had somebody that they could rely on. And it's a pretty low stress thing, man. I mean, a few rehearsals a year, a couple of gigs a year. It's not, I just got to make sure I practice in between, which I've practiced. I took the songs out of set order and now I practice them. Honestly, I practice them in alphabetical order now, which sounds weird, but it mixes them up a little bit different than I'm used to. So it makes me think more.
Hmm.
Um, and it's been a ton of fun. And
That's
I get to
awesome.
play surf music, and I still get to do all of my own stuff as much as I want. And there's nothing really precluding me from being in another band locally, but if I do that, I'll make sure that the new folks understand, hey, a couple times a year, I'm not available on the weekend because I got this Agent Octopus gig.
Is there any reason that you couldn't do your original material with Agent Octopus?
I think they'd probably be open to adding a couple of my songs to the set. Yeah, I don't see why
That's,
not.
yeah. I mean, they're
Yeah,
good
and
tunes and it's surf.
yeah, and one of the cover songs, Art actually asked me to play the lead on it, right? Because there's a melody part and then there's like a guitar solo, like a lead line. And it's a little more of a bluesy kind of lead. And he says that's not one of his strengths. I think he would do it just fine, to be perfectly honest. But that is absolutely my strength.
Hmm.
So I still got to play lead on a song, which was fantastic, you know? And I'm not gonna lie, man, I nailed it.
That's awesome. No, I saw you sent me videos of the New York gig, and first of all, it looked like fun. Secondly, you sounded fantastic. So I can't wait to start
Yeah, we had
talking
a
about
blast.
gear.
Yeah,
But
and we have a uniform, which is a black shirt and khaki pants or shorts. So there
all
you
right.
go. So just like your band, we have a uniform ish. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing the exact same black shirt that I wore at the gig.
So you're
Uh,
in uniform. That's okay.
I'm in uniform. Well, I'm not wearing khaki shorts. Um,
You're not wearing pants.
yeah, but it was really fun. I meshed personality wise pretty well with these folks. Um, Lou is the drummer, and we
Hmm.
practice at his house in Annapolis. And they're all a little bit older than I am, but that didn't bother me. because, you know, what am I going to do?
You're not an ageist.
Well, and in most of the things that I'm involved in, I'm one of the older people. So it was nice to be the youngest guy in the room for once, you know? So
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. And I'm serious, man. I I love their originals. I love their songs. They're so good and they're so well thought out. And even the rhythm parts are not as easy as they sound like they might be on a casual listen. If you really get down and listen to the rhythm parts, there's a lot going on. Seventh chords, passing tones, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Nice.
So, yeah, and I added I kind of, where Art felt strongly or Jim felt strongly about something and they told me about it, I played it that way. But
Hmm.
for the most part, I played it the way I wanted to, the way I felt it. And they were into that. They
Okay.
appreciated that I have my own style. And there were actually a couple of things that in the rhythm, when one song, the rhythm part, I literally could not play it the way that Art recorded it. Um, his right hand rhythm is really strong, and he's got a lot of endurance, and I just hadn't been playing regularly for long enough before that to have that endurance.
Hmm.
But I found a rhythm that fit well in that part, and I played that, and it worked really well. And I don't want to say he didn't notice, but I will say it didn't bother him enough to say something about it.
Okay. There you go.
So yeah, yeah.
I love it.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to, I think we're going to play another show at the end of September down in Florida. So we'll have to travel down there for that. But
Whoa.
uh but that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
having,
my cut of the gig was $22, and I didn't even take it. I just gave it to the guy who had to fly. I gave it to Jim and said, "You keep it, man," because I had a blast. I drove to New York. I took my wife with me. She hasn't seen me play in ages,
hmm,
and she's never seen me play with a surf band. And we got to have a weekend trip to New York.
kind of dope. You had
Yeah,
a
we had a
reason.
blast.
Yeah, you had a reason to make a New York trip for the weekend.
And Andy, let me tell you, I found a parking space 20 yards from the front door of the club.
Kismet. It was perfect. It was meant to be.
Pulled up as somebody else was leaving and took that spot and didn't get a parking ticket.
Unbelievable, my friend.
I know.
That's amazing. That's the
So
capper. You buried the lead.
I did. The Posers, Agent Octopus, new bands, exciting stories. Now
Hmm.
let's move on to the thing that people are really here to talk about. We're an hour in. We haven't mentioned a single piece of gear yet.
What is unbelievable? Show yourself out, Wes.
Unbelievable.
This is a guitar adjacent podcast. Where's the guitars? I hear Bruce yelling.
So first tell me, did you did you actually have to put thought into your rig, or did you just grab what you've got set up and go?
Well, my friend, um, so I did not know. The answer is I had to put thought into it.
Okay.
Okay. So again, I haven't played out in a while, and there are I have two Friedman amps, both of which I am dying to get in a live setting. I genuinely am dying to get them on stage. Um, However, I just joined this band, so that's number one. I have never
Right.
been to this club. That's number two. I wasn't sure if I was going to be mic'd. Can't always
Oh,
make that,
so you needed to have something loud enough to play over the drummer.
or something that can be run direct so that I didn't
Good
have to.
point.
Right.
Good point.
And one of the Friedmans can be run direct, the other one can't. So the Friedman run does have a direct out that's, speaker emulated. The little sister does not. Um, So the other thing about both of the Friedmans, though, is that they are, as tube amps go, extraordinarily heavy. They're
Ah,
heavy. They're tube amps. They're both head and cabinet configuration. So the runt is the runt 50 wide box, and I have a 112 with it, which is very thick walled. And then the little sister is a 20-watt shorter box, smaller box, but it has a 212 matching cabinet and a big one. It's big. Not knowing the size of the room, not knowing how loud I was going to have to play or not play, I decided to go with plan B, which is borrow a rig from a friend. So a friend of mine has been talking about this amp called the Black Star St. James.
okay.
He told me about it months ago when he first got it. It was like, dude, this thing's a tube amp and it weighs 25 pounds and it has a direct out that's speaker emulated, and
What
it has an effect loop and it has two channels and a boost and reverb. It's like it's the cat's pajamas. But
is it? 212, 112, or head?
both you can has all
No,
that.
I mean, which one did you have?
112
112, 6L6 or EL34?
EL34, and there's a
Okay.
reason. There's actually a big distinction between these two amps because the the EL34 version of the St. James is a low gain pedal platform.
Okay.
Even though it has two channels, it is not a high gain amp. If you turn on the second channel and you turn the gain up, you're basically going to get your Plexi ACDC ish type sound. It
All
is
right.
not going to get anywhere close to the type of gain you would need for like heavier stuff. The 6L6 version, on the other hand, is a more modern channel 2. Gets you more into that thicker lead tone. Either you want to say souped up Marshall, you want to say dual rectifier ish, whatever. It's a heavier liquid lead tone type amp.
Gotcha.
So his is the L34, which is the pedal platform. And I just happen to have a bunch of different pedals. So I thought that might work. So I can run either channel 1 or channel 2. Channel 1 is the clean tone, or I can run channel 2 and just find the sweet spot on the gain where if all my pedals are off, I'm still getting a little bit of beef, but I can, turn the volume on the guitar down and get super, super clean. And that's kind
Right.
of what I did. Um, so I borrowed his St. James and I ran it direct, but I didn't run it in silent mode. I ran it so I was still getting a little bit of stage volume.
Okay.
Not that I could hear it because it was pointed at my calf muscles, and
Well,
yeah, couldn't hear it that like I we sound checked and I heard my amp through both the speakers and the mains and it sounded good, so I'm like, I'm gonna leave it there. But when I got back, because I had a wireless, so I walked out into the where the crowd was to hear it. Um, but on stage, standing literally inches from it, I could barely hear it. But I didn't have to because I could still sort of hear it in the mains. Anyway,
gotcha.
yeah. So Black Star St. James 50-watt EL34 112 combo. I have never used one before. I borrowed it for the audition and the gig, and I was blown away. Blown away.
Awesome.
Yeah, blown away. Not just by the fact that it's 25 pounds. And let's be clear, a tube amp that weighs 25 pounds is a godsend to
With a
someone.
speaker in it.
Mhm, with a speaker in it, 25 pounds. It weighs less than my pedal board. Legitimately weighs less than my pedal board.
Wow.
It doesn't sound like it weighs less than my pedal board. It sounds fantastic. Um, I I used it exactly as you're meant to, pedal platform with the gain, with all my pedals off except for a little reverb. It is beautiful. Great for
Nice.
low gain rhythm. It breaks up nicely if you hit it hard. It's just fantastic. And then I have multiple pedals for gain, which we can talk about in a minute, to get different
Okay.
flavors, including stacking them if you need to stack them for solos and whatnot.
All right.
Um,
What'd you use for guitars?
ah, so primary guitar, most of the night,
Ah, L. Tyler Rooney.
L. Tyler
Oh,
Rooney.
which you've got set up hum single hum now.
It has always been hum single hum.
Ah, I thought it had a single
Well,
in the neck.
it it comes from the factory with two of these in the middle and
Oh,
neck.
so, gotcha.
These are Duncan single coils, but they're hum canceling. I replaced it with this. I think that is a little 59 or a little
Yeah.
59.
Lil.
Lil. Um, so despite that being a little 59, it actually still does kind of resemble a very beefy single coil, if I'm being honest. Not as glassy. Sorry, we shouldn't be using those terms to describe single coils. It doesn't have the same single coil tone as, say, a real Strat pickup has, like in
Right.
the, but it definitely does sort of, kind of. Anyway, the Tyler got most of the work. The other guitar that got a little bit of work was my PRS McCarty 594. Um, that got some work, especially on a song where I had to quickly drop D,
Yeah.
because it's got
It's a hardtail.
the hardtail and makes it easy. Um, so that got some work. And yeah, so those were the two guitars for the night. And then let's talk shop, pedal shop, that is.
Now,
So
is your board small enough that you can hold it up and show? Oh, awesome.
let's find out. Sorry, kids, my upper body strength isn't what it used to be.
2 rows. Looks like you got a phase 90, a tuner, a super overdrive, and then a bunch of stuff I don't recognize.
Okay. So from let's just go in signal path order. I go right
Okay.
in, I go right into a tuner first. No, I do not put the tuner at the end. Yes, the tuner at the end can work, but I find that if you put the tuner at the end, then in order to get really good tuning, you have to turn off your gain pedals. And if I want to leave a gain pedal on,
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
so
Did you see my
um,
note about that and answer that preemptively, or were you just saying that extemporaneously?
you're left to draw your own conclusions. Anyway, after the tuner comes my my MXR Phase 90
Okay.
set with the control fully counterclockwise. So it's basically the lowest modulation setting, the Eddie Van Halen setting.
Yeah, so it's flavor rather than hey.
Yeah. Um, and I didn't use it a ton, but I use it enough that I don't want to get rid of it, especially
Yeah.
because this board's going to have to double as the board for a different band, which we'll talk about momentarily. Um, Next pedal is the JHS Unicorn, which is
Okay.
his clone of a good Univibe.
All
Um,
right.
I did use that on several songs, so that's definitely staying. Um, Next up are my three gain pedals, distortion pedals, overdrive pedals. The
Okay.
first one is the JHS Pack Rat, which
That's the one that has like the switchable clone versions, right?
it's
Or rat versions.
nine different rats in one box, which sounds
Do
like a
you
very bad time for most people.
Yeah, do you know which rat setting you use, which rat generation you like to use?
Um, yeah, I had it on the OG.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Please continue.
Do you know what OG means?
It means original gangster. So that to me says the first iteration of the rat.
Yep, the first iteration. There you go. I don't know. I had to drag that one out a little bit. Okay.
That's all good.
At the gig though, on the fly, I made a decision. It was on a different setting and I didn't like it. It was on the You Dirty Rat setting. That was
You
a
dirty
pedal.
rat.
Yep, it was a pedal that didn't wasn't exactly popular, but I
Yeah.
liked it. I liked it at the audition. I did not like it live for what I was doing with it.
Gotcha.
Okay, next in line, the classic yellow best friend, the Boss Super Overdrive.
Awesome.
Okay, that got most of the work for your mid gain rhythms.
Yeah.
Um, and then
It's
next to
what that
that,
pedal excels at.
uh-huh. And then next to that is a JHS Bonsai, which is their 9 tube screamers in a box pedal, 9 tube screamer
Okay.
clones. Before you ask me if I have to lift this pedal board one more time. Um, oh, look at that. TS10.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Not the most popular of the tube screamer models.
No, no.
It
I
just
don't
goes to show you what the ears want, the ears want.
That's right. I don't care that it's on TS10. I just liked how it sounded. Okay, enough of that. In the loop, um, no, I'm sorry. Electro Harmonics did Deluxe Mistress Flanger.
Okay. The flanger. Yeah,
Got no steps that night. So you see where I'm going with this.
I do.
Next to that, the Boss CE2 Wazacraft. Yeah,
That's my favorite pedal.
also got no steps.
What?
It's the 90s.
They used chorus in the 90s.
Where?
Hysteria all over it. Every Rocktron track.
Well, okay, fair enough,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
except
Uh-huh.
that's not the Boss CE2. You can't get that Rocktron
That's true, but it is
Rockman
chorus.
chorus. Yeah, all right. We're not doing Def Leppard. Um,
You
and
are when I'm sitting in.
wait, Def Leppard is 80s. Did that album
Not his
Hysteria? Hysteria was the 80s, my man.
what? No. Hysteria was like 90.
Was it though?
Where are we both Googling at the same time?
I'm not Googling it. I saw you Googling it.
Oh, released 1987. Oh, wah wah.
As I was saying, it got no steps that night. Um,
Uh,
Next is the Universal Audio Starlight, which is their delay pedal.
right.
And then
That's the
their,
big block, right?
yeah, and then the Universal Audio Golden Retriever. No, the Golden Reverberator, their reverb pedal. Um,
Another big block.
yeah, all of that powered with Chalk's power supplies.
Okay.
You'll notice there
Do you
is a
know
pedal conspicuously missing. Go ahead, what?
do you know off the top of your head which Chalks models you have
Oh
on the board
God.
without lifting the board again?
Um, DC7 and why does this just say 8? So a 7 and an 8.
The eight's an expansion. The DC7 is the one with that's the
Okay.
one you plug into the wall, and
Right.
the 8 you plug into the 7.
That's right. They get daisy chained. So those
Yeah.
two. But you'll
So
notice,
something's missing.
yeah. What do I not have on my
Um,
board? Or what did I not even mention that is almost like a absolute must on like every rock player's pedal board?
no wah pedal.
Bingo.
Oh, did I get it?
Yeah, didn't even bring it.
Didn't even bring it. Where
No, I
if you decide to use it, where are you going to put it? You going to put it in front of the tuner?
in front of everything and off the board and powered with a battery.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
But I
And
looked at
you knew
this.
that before you opened your mouth, didn't you?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I know who I'm talking to. But I looked at the set list and I didn't see a need. I didn't see a song that needed a wah pedal. And in fact, the one song or two songs that do have a wah pedal, the other guy does the wah part. So I'm like, problem solved.
I don't even need to bring it.
So
Awesome. Now,
yeah.
so was there anything in either, let's say at the gig, right? Because you had an opportunity between the audition and the gig to tweak the setup, to
Mhm.
tweak the settings, all that kind of stuff. Is there anything that you wanted to do at the gig that you couldn't because you'd left it off your pedal board?
No,
Tell me
no.
what that thing is. Oh, you said no, not yeah. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. Now that doesn't mean I didn't make changes. I did make changes after the gig. If you recall, do you want me to talk about changes after?
No, no, go ahead, hit it now.
If you recall, when I picked up the board, um, let
You
me
don't have to
talk.
pick it up again. Grunt a little when you do it.
Ah, ah, help me.
Yeah, what's that one? That's not one of the ones you didn't mention that one.
Nope.
That's not the Starlight or the Golden Shower reverberator.
Golden shower. Did you say golden shower?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Uh, whew. That,
What
my
was that
friends,
giant brick?
yeah, brick replaced the chorus and flanger that got no steps. No, we
Ah,
ain't got no time for no scrubs. This pedal board, if you don't get steps, that is the Friedman IRX.
okay.
That is their,
Oh, that's a pedal board amp.
that is a pedal board amp. It is a 2-channel pedal board amp that runs direct, speaker emulated. It's a tube amp. In theory, I believe there's tubes stuffed in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, and it is the backup for if and when something goes horribly wrong with my backline.
Right.
Because you and I both know that that can happen. And the one flaw to the Black Star that I can see right now, unless I'm missing something, and I will YouTube it to be sure, the one flaw is you cannot service the tubes in the field. At least
Oh, yeah,
you can't,
that's a shortcoming.
yeah, at least you can't quickly service the tubes. So
Yeah.
in theory, what should happen is if something, not that I want this to happen, so let me not even say it out loud, but in theory, if something goes wrong at a gig, I mean, there's so many things that could go wrong. The first thing I would probably do is,
Change the tube.
if you know it's a tube, I would change a tube. Can't do that with this. So if something goes wrong with this amp, I have to be able to quickly swap it out. The problem is the, well, not the problem. What I have to account for is the St. James has both a balanced and unbalanced out.
Okay.
So TRS or XLR. The Friedman IRX only has TRS. So in theory, if something goes wrong with my amp live, I have to
You
make sure
can't
I can,
just switch the cable over.
no, I have to quickly unplug the amp and then plug it into the IRX. That'll be the first thing I do. And then if that fixes the problem, I hear my stuff again, then I would swap over the pedals. Like the, because here, let me talk it out. So that IRX is in my, it's not in my signal chain right now.
Gotcha. It's just
Okay.
on the board.
It's on the board. So what I
You
would
get a
have
better
to do,
workout that way.
yeah, what I have to do is unplug my guitar from my patch board or patch bay, plug it into the amp. Actually, I'm gonna think about that because I have pedals that run in front, so I'd probably have to
Yeah.
plug it into the first pedal or the tuner. Anyway, and then I have to rewire a bunch of things on the fly, which is not ideal, but it's better than having no backup.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm gonna have to figure out. I actually would really like to have a patch bay that would handle all that for me. So all I have to do is do the cabling at the patch bay. So, but I
Yeah.
wired this patch bay myself. I made all those cables. I soldered my own cables. I don't know if I had mentioned that I can do that.
Yes, you may have. I was going to say, for anybody that's not clinically insane like you, if you're looking for something, a box that's some kind of a patch bay,
Mhm.
check out Saturn Works.
Yeah.
Saturn Works pedals. They have a custom shop, and they can probably do what you need.
Hmm.
They've made several boxes for me to do weird stuff.
Yeah.
So
Good recommendation.
yeah,
I'll
and
figure it out.
the
Hmm.
IRX has two 12AX7 tubes in it,
Hmm.
one for each channel.
Yeah. Okay. Which
So
think so.
tube
Let's
pre tube preamp, solid state power amp.
Yeah, but I say but because in a tube amp like a Friedman, there's usually more than one tube per channel.
Yeah, that's true. But
There's
this is
an
a different kind of amp.
Right. So what is this tube doing?
Yeah.
Is it
And
a
it may be running the signal through both tubes for each channel and just using, the halves of the tube, because a 12AX7 has two halves. It's essentially two tubes in one two circuits in one tube in one housing. So you can use half the tube for one thing and half the tube for another thing.
Did you know that that's why it's called a 12 AX7? The 12 stands for 1 and 2, which is one tube with two sides. Did you know that?
I that sounds like bullshit to me, Andy, but
Damn
I'll
it. All right, never mind. I thought
you thought you could get me with that? I
no.
mean, does it sound impossible? No. Does it sound real? No. Uh
Do you know what the
yeah.
AX stands for? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I don't. But I do know that out of all of the 12A something 7 tubes, the AX7 has the most gain.
Yes, and here's a question for you. Does the gain lessen as the letter goes up? Because there's a 12AT, a 12AU, and isn't the 12AT the least amount of gain?
I believe that is correct. I would have to look it up. I don't think it has anything to do with the letter.
So, because I was going to say, why isn't there a 12AZ7, which like lets you turn the amp up to 11, but with the tube? Why aren't people
I
working
don't
on
know.
this? Is what I'm saying. Why aren't people working on these things? This is what I want to know.
So the AY7 actually looks like it has the okay, so here's the gain from top to bottom. 12AX7, 100%. Call it. 12AT7, 60%. 12AY7, 45%. 12AV7, which I have never seen, 41%. And 12AU7, 19%.
Wow, so the U7 is the actual lowest gain.
The U7 is the lowest. The swapping an AT7 in for an AX7 is a very common thing, especially for the tube driver,
The
because
input stage.
you don't want any extra gain there. You just want the signal to pass through.
Hmm.
Um, and you can also making that swap for the phase inverter is also a great way to tame a really, really hot amp.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's awesome. All right, so I learned something new today that there's a 12AV7. So that's my pedal board, my friend. I am
Nice.
going to leave it as it is right now because I think having that Friedman amp may save me from having to bring an actual amp to rehearsal,
Yeah.
right? Like
Are you
why
guys are you guys in the room or are you in ears?
in the room?
Okay. So you need
And
to be able to hear your amp.
mhm.
They got a soundboard. I'm sure
Yeah.
that'll work out pretty well.
Yeah, so I don't have to bring an amp to practice. I have an amp on the board. The other thing is I just formed, I didn't form it, we formed it, a Deep Purple tribute band.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and so
Hence
um
the bitchy Blackmore.
exactly, that's my stage name. Um so the thing is that I was going to take the phaser off my board because it really didn't get a whole lot of use at the Posers gig, and it may not. However, it will get use in the Deep Purple tribute band, because I'm listening to some of the songs that we're going to be covering, and I hear phaser. So I also hear
Nice.
fuzz, but I don't have any fuzz pedals at the moment because I'm an idiot. Um, but there is a setting on the Pack Rat that will sort of mimic a fuzz. Anyway,
Gotcha.
yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna think about that. I might. Do I replace the Pack Rat? No, I like what the Pack Rat does. I'm gonna keep that on there. It's good for like Weezer and stuff. It's good for like '90s heavier grungy type stuff.
Gotcha.
So
Awesome.
that's my board, my friend. Now the other changes that we'll be making, is that I am probably not going to be using the McCarty again because that sucker is being sold.
Okay.
Now, if the question is why would you sell a beautiful guitar like that, the answer is I need the money. Um, but
Uh, uh,
also,
yeah.
also, I have two Fender Custom Shop Strats here. Now, one of them, this one, this one's going to be pretty perfect for the Deep Purple gig.
Yeah, sure will.
Now, unfortunately, it doesn't have the black pickups that Richie likes to favor.
It's
Um,
just a cover. You can throw those on there.
yeah, but I don't want to mess with this guitar. It's so perfect. Um, the other guitar, this one will probably get knocked into drop D tuning.
The roasty maple neck one. Yeah.
Yeah. So this one will probably get knocked into drop D. And but I don't know, maybe this could be a good like Tyler replacement. I gotta be honest. I struggled keeping this thing in tune. And that annoys the shit out of me because this was not cheap. This is a custom shop guitar. And my
Well,
initial
you still
thinking,
gotta set it up right, man. It's got a Strat tremolo on it, whether it's custom shop or not.
my feeling is I must have botched the setup. Um, because it can't, I don't think it's binding in the nut. Maybe it is. I greased the nut up pretty good, name of my sex tape, when I changed the strings. And I don't think it's that. And I don't think it's slippage in the tuning pegs. So it could be something else. I'm going to give this another, I just restrung it. And I want to see once the strings settle down if I can keep them in tune. And if I can, this might start coming out. The other thing I did with this guitar is I took out the retaining clip. So now
You're freewheeling.
freewheeling and comes right out, which may be a problem if I'm really going crazy on stage, but I don't do that. So, um, yeah, I'm thinking the custom shop strats might get some use in one of these bands, but if not, the Tyler is still perfect. It stayed in tune. It didn't give me a single issue whatsoever. It never does. It's just an incredible workhorse, stable, reliable. Um, that was the greatest guitar purchase I've ever made. It's now that's a 2008. What's going on? It's 2024. I can't believe
Okay.
that guitar is 16 years old. I cannot.
Crazy.
Seriously, and it's only had one fret level, because I take care of it. It also, though, unfortunately, had to have the nut replaced because it took a bad ding and a chunk of the nut broke off. But
Yeah, it happens.
at least it was the nut and not something else.
The
So I had
fretboard or a
right. So
fret.
had to have the nut replaced and I had the frets leveled. but for a 16-year-old guitar, I could not be happier with how that thing performs. So, my
Nice.
friend, I believe it's your turn to regale us with your gear.
Fantastic. Yeah. So for Agent Octopus, I went full surf, and um I used my Jazz Masters. You've seen before my custom shop Jazz Master, the Sparkle Seafoam Sparkle. Um that was the one that I decided I was going to lean the most heavily on, but I also have a made in Japan Jazz Master, the white one with the racing stripe. That was my backup.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still debating whether to get it refretted or sell it, because I still, as much as I like the way it sounds, I can't play it. I don't like playing it. So I either need to get it refretted with bigger frets, or I need to just sell it, but I have to decide.
Wasn't that the scam guitar?
That was the scam guitar, exactly. So
Yeah.
I used the custom shop for the first rehearsal. I used the made in Japan for the second rehearsal, and I decided to go with the custom shop for the gig because it feels the best when I play it.
Mm-hmm.
So I put fresh strings on it on Thursday. I played it for my rehearsal session, my personal private practice on Friday, and then I took it and no other guitar to the gig on Saturday and played it on Saturday, which
Wow.
is tempting the fates, but it had an hour of playtime on it, plus stretching the strings to get them bedded in after changing them.
But
So I was
but if
pretty confident I wasn't going to break a string.
but if you did, there's another
I'd
guitar
have been
player on
S.
stage.
Yeah, and he brought a spare guitar, but I don't think he brought it into the club. And he plays flat wounds and hasn't changed his strings in a long time.
Flat wounds. Wow.
Yeah.
So did you bring extra strings though?
Yes, I brought extra strings in my little toolkit, so I could have, you know, knocked off to the side of the stage and changed the strings real quick.
I mean, if you broke a string, how quickly do you think you could replace a string on the Jazz Master?
2 minutes.
That's crazy.
I could have it on there. If I broke a string at the beginning of a song, I could have it strung up and tuned by the end of the song.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know that I
So
could say
then
that.
for my practicing at home, and then for the first rehearsal, I used my Tone King Falcon Grande, which is a 112 combo with a fantastic reverb tank in it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mostly kept it on the tweed setting or the rhythm setting, and I used the tweed setting as kind of my gainy sound for my lead, my one lead that I had. Um, but talking to the guys, I found out about the size of the venue and the tight setup on the stage and the tight schedule. And so I decided to abandon the amp, and just go with a full on pedal board setup. So for the second rehearsal in the gig, I used a Vox MV50 Brian May, which is the tiniest, cutest little guitar amp you've ever seen. I'll show it to you in a second. It's a hybrid amp. It's got a thing they call a new tube, which is basically a tube as that's part of a transistor, right? It's a little transistor, an IC that they plug into a socket. Um, and apparently it is a real tube, although I'm skeptical, and obviously it's got solid state power. The amp itself is rated at 50 watts, but that's only if you're pushing a 4 ohm load. So if you push an 8 ohm load, it's 25 watts. If you push a 16 ohm load, it's 12 and a half watts. So the more resistance it gets, the farther it cuts the power. I'm running it into a 112 cab, a very small 112 cab that has a Celestion cream back in it. So I'm running it at 8 ohms, which means that when I run it, I get nominally 25 watts. And it is the Brian May version. So you would expect it to be very raucous. But you can turn the treble booster off, which of course I did. It's got a built-in little treble booster. I turned that off, and I turned the gain all the way down to 0, and it's just a pure straight clean amp.
Huh.
Yeah, and it sounds fantastic. And because it was on my board, all I had to do was plug in my power strip and plug in a speaker cable, and I was hot.
It's on your board. It's that small. I'm looking at
It's on my
pictures of it
board.
right now. They show a
Yeah.
picture of it with a little 1/8 cabinet, which is just
Yeah.
sweet.
Let me show you. I've got my board right here. It's not as hard for me to pick up, so I'll show you.
Shut up. Why? Because it's smaller, because you're stronger. And is it
Maybe
both?
both. That's the amp right there.
I That's crazy.
See?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Look how small
That's
it
the whole
is.
thing.
Wow. And
Now
you that
it does stick up a little high, but not terrible. That little thing on top, I guess, is supposed to keep you from getting burned. But that's it.
wow. I mean, that looks like a handle.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's got its own power supply that I've got zip tied and velcroed to the board.
Okay.
And I just want to show you this because I noticed you didn't linger, but I want to show you. Look at this magic on the back of my pedal board. How clean is that?
You're really happy with that, aren't you?
I am. I'm super, super proud of it.
Mine doesn't look
Right?
as clean, which is weird for me because I'm usually pretty anal retentive. But what you didn't see with mine is that mine lights up from underneath. It's a backlit pedal board and it lights up purple and it's sexy and cute.
Ooh,
Yeah,
ooh, that's special.
it is. It's
So
really cool.
then the pedals are pretty standard. I'm a big Boss fan, and I always have been. So I've got a Boss tuner, the older version, the TU2. Excuse me. Um, and on this, because I didn't want to mess with this underneath the setup, so I did run the tuner in the front. But if I'd had enough time, I would have run it at the end of the chain. So I'm still thinking about how to do that on this board. And then so the first effect pedal in the chain is my CE2 Waza chorus, which I have set wide and slow. And I use that quite a bit, especially on the mellower songs, to just kind of boost the fatness and give it a little bit of width to the sound. And that worked out really well, especially for like really strummy stuff. And then I have two tremolo pedals, and I'll tell you why. I have a Boss TR2 tremolo, and I have a Supro 1310 tremolo. So they're both different. I mean, Bosses, you can select the wave form, and the Supro is either optical or harmonic, and I think I've got it set to optical. I'd have to look. Um, but I've got the Boss set to be a slow tremolo and the Supro set to be a fast tremolo because I actually did need two different tremolo sounds for the set. And then I've got the DS1 Waza Boss DS1, the orange distortion. I've got the gain all the way on 0. I've got the tone set a little bit bright, and I'm basically using it as a volume boost that gets a little dirty. And that was my I kicked that in for the solo that I
Okay.
had.
Okay.
And then I've got a Dan Electro back talk reverse delay, which I
Ooh.
used kind of as well, I used it as an effect. I used it in places where tremolo wasn't really appropriate, but I needed something that sounded a little weird. We play an Adventures song called Out of Limits, which is a very space themed song, and it's got a kind of a spacey middle section, and I use the reverse delay on that. I use it at the end of songs sometimes just to add a little bit of, you know, fun. And then because it's surf, you got to have reverb, and you got to have reverb that drips. So I have a J Rocket boing, which it's a really good. So if you run the pedal from zero, let's call it 0 to 10,
Mhm.
from 0 to 5, it's a really good kind of atmospheric light reverb. And then from 5 to 7, it's a little funky. But from 7 to 10, it drips. So it did what I needed to do.
Okay.
And plus the cool thing, one of the cool things about using a really drippy reverb effect, whether it's a pedal or, I would always prefer to use my reissue Fender reverb tube unit, but I'm not going to haul that not to this gig, where we're on stage and off stage. We had to move,
Right. Yep.
small place, etc. Um, Turning the reverb off acts like a volume boost.
Oh,
So when there were a couple of times where I had to play a rhythm figure that needed to be out front, so I would just turn the reverb pedal off.
okay.
And then when the lead guitar came back in, I'd turn the reverb pedal back on and I'd go back into the background where I belonged. And then my
Nice.
power supply, I don't know if you saw it. My power supply is a True Tone
Mhm.
CS7. All of my power supplies pretty much at this point are True Tone. I think they make the best stuff, um, personally, you know. So the I showed you last time I showed you the Surfcaster of Doom.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to have played that, but it didn't come back from the painter until after the gig. Plus, like as I said, Art plays a Strat, and he wanted to make sure that we had good tonal separation. He didn't want to run two Strats, even though a lot of old school surf bands will run two Strats. So we just didn't. I think for the next gig, when we have a little more time to work out our tones, he's struggling with his amp. He's not really sure if he likes it. He uses a like a Boss multi effects unit. He's not really sure if he likes the things he's got programmed into it.
Hmm.
So he needs to work on his tone just a little bit to make himself happy. I'll tell you, Andy, he sounded fantastic. He sounded fine. There's absolutely 100% not a damn thing wrong with his tone. But it bothers him that it doesn't sound exactly the way he wants it to. And that's the only reason why I say he needs to work on his tone a little bit.
I gotcha. Okay,
You know
that's
what I
fair.
mean? Like I don't think he actually needs to work on his tone, but he does.
Yeah. Okay, I hear you.
So,
And that's
but
actually when
the
you said it, that was my,
interpreted,
and yeah, yeah, because it's not in character for you to sit here and tell me how great the band is and then say he needs to work on his tone.
exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, having one guy playing a Strat and one guy playing a Jazz Master, it was very easy, even on an iPhone recording, to tell who was playing which part.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm going to mess with that formula, but I really would love to play my Strat, my orange Tangerine Dream Sparkle Strat in front of people.
You'll get a
you
chance.
know. So, but yeah, I mean, the we talked about the things that you might change in your rig, and that you're selling your 594. If anybody's interested in that, please reach out. Um, if I change up my rig, it'll kind of depend on the gig.
Yep.
If we're playing on a bigger stage, we have time to set up, then I'll probably take my Falcon Grande, because I really, really love the reverb on that. And having the built-in ability to switch between the three voicings makes it a super versatile amp, and it sounds good clean. It's got the built-in attenuator. It's just a fantastic amp.
Hmm.
The nice thing is I don't necessarily have to change my board, right? Because if I use my Falcon Grande, all I have to do is, instead of running the MV50 into a speaker cabinet, all I have to do is unplug the backtalk from the Boeing and run a guitar cable from the back talk to my amp, and I'm done.
Okay.
Plus, if something goes wrong with my amp, I have the MV50 right there on my board. I have a backup. All I
Yeah,
got to
you
do
do.
is remember to bring the speaker cable with me, and in like literally 2 minutes, I can be up and running again.
Yeah, earlier while we were talking about this stuff, I was thinking, uh, what an interesting time we're in where both you and I have our backup amps on our board.
On the board. Yeah.
Yeah, where
You remember when
yours,
your backup amp was your other amp that you left at home?
yeah, yep. And I think, yours is your backup amp speaker cable into a cabinet. Mine has to go direct, but at this, they're both amplifiers. They're both on our pedal boards, and we both, for the first time, have our backups like ready to go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they
the only thing I
sound,
need.
and my backup and your backup both are good enough to be primary rigs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and seriously, 25 years ago, if you told me I'd be using a solid state amp in front of people, I'd have laughed at you and we'd have stopped being friends. Like you know me, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
But now I can't believe how good that amp sounded in a live situation, you know?
And
So
the designs and technology are getting better and smaller.
yeah. So the only thing I need to do to make sure I can use it as a viable backup system is to make sure that I have an adapter in my gig bag so that I can unplug the speaker from the amp and plug it into, like, I need a female to female adapter.
Okay.
So, and that's the only thing that would stop me. And I always carry one of those anyways, because you never know when you're going to need them.
That's right. That's cool.
So,
Well, good
yeah,
stuff, man. I love and I like your pedal board has the right number of boss pedals, which is never enough.
exactly, exactly. And I might swap out the distortion pedal for
Hmm.
something else. Um,
Okay.
I might actually put my Strymon El Capistan on there because I love being able to tap tempo the delay.
Yeah, but you lose your distortion pedal.
Yeah, but see, if I'm using my Tone King, I don't need the distortion pedal because I have the voicing switches.
Right.
So,
Okay.
it that might be a gig to gig conversation, but I don't use the delay that much in this band yet. If we start playing some of my songs where I'm playing the lead guitar role, I'll need it. I'll need regular delay, but right
Okay.
now I don't.
Okay.
So it's working out pretty good.
Nice. Well, we're both in good we're both in new bands. We're both in really good bands, and we're both it sounds like we're both really happy with our gear. Um,
Yeah.
which
Yeah. While we were talking, I got a text message from Jim, the bass player, asking about a date on the calendar for a possible gig in Atlanta later this year. So
ooh, so you guys don't do a lot of gigs, but when you do, you're traveling.
yeah, and I kind of like that because then it makes every gig seem like an occasion.
I like that.
Yeah, me
Whereas
too.
with my gigs, it's occasion to avoid bar fights. But that's okay. You
Well,
know,
I think you're going to enjoy, like, I think I would rather, in your situation, I would rather play every couple of weeks than like every Friday and Saturday night. To me, that sounds like a grind. But playing every couple of weeks, that gives me a week to rehearse,
mhm.
to meet up with everybody and have a good rehearsal, have some fun, get to know everybody, and then at the gig, we're playing songs we know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking at the band calendar right now, and we have one more in May. Um, we have two back to back in June, a weekend. We have another one in July. So they're not, well, oh, and there's a couple Monday gigs in there that are down the shore, but they're they're not doing every weekend, Friday and Saturday. I don't know that they want
Yeah.
to. Um, so like you said, like having them spread out makes them feel like more special and also less of a grind, which I've done that. It's extremely physically challenging. And that
Yeah,
was
it is.
20 years ago. I can't imagine how I would do doing it today. Um, so no, that's awesome. I'm glad we had this talk. I'm glad we did this topic. It's fun. Congratulations on your new band. That's very exciting.
Congratulations on your new band.
Thank you. We both had very interesting stories. So, anything else you want to talk about before we do a wrap up?
No, I'm good. Let's wrap it up.
Well, you can visit us, folks, at differentstringspodcast.com if you would, please, and thank you. Or email us your questions or topic ideas. Bruce, you're out there listening. Send us your topic ideas, my friend. We love you. And
Please.
also, not just Bruce, all y'all, get off your ass and send us some topic ideas. We want to know what you want us to talk about. Differentstringspodcast@gmail.com or contact at differentstringspodcast.com. Good news for your racist uncles. We're on Facebook at Different Strings Podcast. And if you're listening or watching on YouTube, please do all of the things like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Just keep it civil in the comments, okay? Don't make me come after you. And also, finally, please subscribe to our podcast, Different Strings, wherever you consume such media so you don't miss another action-packed episode. Please.
Yeah, and all that plus more.
Yeah. I don't know what
There you
else there
go.
is to say except I'm your co-host Andy, and
And
that's Wes over there, and we're gonna do a
yeah,
peace out. Ready? So, wait, hold on.
there they
There
are.
we go.
And make sure you come back for Music That Matters, which is we do one of those for every regular episode that we do now. And you get to find out about some really cool music that you probably have heard but may not have thought about for a while.
Definitely in this case, do you want to talk about who's next, or you want to keep it a secret?
Keep it a secret. You got to tune in.
All right, peace out, everyone. Tune in, or you'll miss.